Hey, this is Blake Techmeyer from GreatSense.org, and I'm going to start a new series of videos that kind of explain how to use some different programs that I use on my website. These programs will vary from paid programs like Adobe all the way to free Linux programs that are provided online for anyone to use, and even some web-based programs that are helpful as well. Well, to start us off, this first episode is going to be looking at Adobe Illustrator and what is it. Now, for some of you, you've probably never heard of Adobe Illustrator before, but you probably heard of Adobe Photoshop. Now, one thing is you can use the Adobe Creative Suite. You can sign up for it and pay for it monthly, or you can buy the programs outright. If you buy them outright, they're extremely expensive. If you do the monthly program, it can be around $30. If you're a teacher, you can get a pretty sweet deal for about $20. And so with that, you get all these different things to use. It's a great deal, and especially if you're from the world of creativity and making things, I highly recommend it. Well, now let's take and really quick compare Photoshop and Illustrator. What's the differences? Well, Photoshop's an incredible program that's used for editing graphics and making photos and art. Illustrator is going to be a little more defined, where it has a lot of the same features as Photoshop, but it goes into a little bit more detail. Well, let's open it up and take a look at it. So first thing you do is you click on the app. It's going to open up this first screen talking about the copyright, talking about who made the artwork, just the initialization phase. Now once you get to here, you're going to see several things. One, top left here, you're going to see the program's logo, and you're going to see your file bar with the drop-down menus. We're going to come back to that later. There's a ton of things you can do with that. Well, also you can see here it says Work and Learn. Now, if you've already been using Adobe Illustrator, you're going to have a lot of different apps, a lot of different files that you can pick that you've been already working on, or you can go to Learn. If there's some things you'd like to know more about or how to use it better, this would be a great place to go. They're the professionals, but I feel like I have quite a bit of experience and I've learned a little bit with this, so I'd like to share with you what I'm learning. So click on here and let's go to Create New, and it's going to pop up this window. Now it's talking about a new document, and so you have multiple options here. Now here's some recent ones, but let's look more at mobile. So if you're going to make a graphic that's for a phone, it's going to help give you some different sizes, options. It even gives you some things that you can purchase to use. Web, going to give you some normal web ones, and print, letter, legal, tabloid, film and video, and art and illustration. Well, let's make this simpler. We're just going to go to web. We're going to click on common and look over here. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change its name. It's nice to kind of do that beforehand. You can always do it later on when you save it, but just for our case, let's put this one Adobe Illustrator Test. Okay. Now it's going to give you the dimensions, and it's going to have several options to pick from. Whichever one you pick, just what's familiar with you. I'm going to go with inches because I can kind of see that better. And so I got about 18 by 10. Now, orientation, do you want to have it portrait or landscape? Let's stay with landscape. And let's increase it to 3 artboards. Now, what's an artboard? This is where it gets a little different than Adobe Photoshop. In a Photoshop, you primarily work with just one thing at a time with many different layers, whereas here in Illustrator, you can jump back and forth a lot easier and share those things across the different artboards. And it'll make more sense once we get into there. So let's click on Create. And it takes a moment to load, but there's our 3 artboards. 1, 2, 3. Now, let's just kind of take a moment to realize what's going on here, because it's kind of overwhelming. You got a lot of stuff going on all the sides. Let's start with the left. We're familiar with this. It's the toolbar. You're going to have tons of different options here. We'll start to dive into those a little bit more later in this episode, but toolbar. Top of here, we got the file drop-down bar. I mentioned that earlier. It's going to have a ton of things you can do. We're going to use some of those as well. On the right side here, you see where you have all these tabs. What's beautiful with all the Adobe programs is you can kind of move things around to help line up just the way you want. This one starts with properties, layers, libraries, and colors. And then on the bottom part here, what you're going to see is you're going to see a scroll bar. You're going to see it's going to tell you which artboard that you're on, and it's going to tell you what the current zoom is at. Now, one thing is, depends on what you're working on. I really like Essentials, but you can change this up to kind of match what you're working on. For example, web is going to be more web-based. You could do automation. It's going to give you some different things like actions. And so those are some awesome things to check out, but we're going to stick with the essentials for today. Now, essentially, when you get started on this, one of the biggest things is how do you navigate it? How do you get around and see what you're doing? Well, one thing is, as you know, there's the word view up here. You can click on that. There's a lot of different things to pick from. We're going to come back to that. Let's start with the zoom tool. It's right here. Now with the zoom tool, you can click on any of the artboards. Let's go to this bottom one. Stick it in the middle, click. It centers it for you. Now from there you click again, it'll zoom it in. And what's amazing is, or if you click on this drop down bar, you can go to 64,000% zoom. That's extremely fine detail. Most people never gonna need to do that, but maybe you will. So come up here to view, let's back out a little bit. Let's go to fit all in window. There we go, we can see all three artboards. And let's zoom into the second one this time. Zoom in. Now what if you're here and you wanna get to a different artboard? Well, there's different things you can do. You can swipe with your mouse, or you can grab your hand tool and drag, which is also a nice feature, okay? And if you right click on hand tool, it also gives a print tiling tool. We'll get into that later. Hand tool is the best one you need. All right, so now we've kind of done that. Let's backtrack out again, and let's just go to fit artboard in window. Okay, we're on artboard 1. Let's take and work on some text. So come up here, we see the text box. If you right click on it, you're gonna see there's a bunch of different options. Stick with the basics. So we're gonna go type tool, click here, and if you drag it out, you're gonna see where it says lorem ipsum, and it's got all this garbled mess. Well, that's just their, it's the type of thing that they put on there just as a filler. So we're gonna delete that out, and we're gonna type in the word hello with an exclamation mark at the end. Now, if you're used to most programs, you can highlight it, and you can make a lot of different changes. Well, for us, let's take in first, we're gonna change the size. We're gonna change it to 88, can't hardly see it all. 88's a good number, so we're gonna go there. Next, let's change the font. Now, if you go online, there's a lot of different websites where you can get free fonts on the public domain. You can also buy ones where you purchase them. We're just gonna stick with a really basic one that's free that comes with it, and we're gonna go to Arial. So click on Arial. And now that you've opened that up, we're gonna see on the right side here where it says Properties. It's gonna tell us how large this is, and we can even change this. We can kind of shrink this down so it fits the word hello better. We can drag hello to the middle. There we go. Take your text tool again, and you're gonna see where it says fill and stroke. This is one of the most beautiful things about Illustrator is it's really a great program for fonts. So let's highlight it, and I'm gonna go with, I like the color green. You can go with whatever color you want. And so we've changed the color to green. Nice. Well, let's take and do something really cool here, and let's add a stroke of 2 that's black. Look at that. It looks amazing. The font really pops with the outline on there. This is the nice thing with this. I've tried to do this in Photoshop. There's a lot of different tricks to get there, but nowhere near as easy as an Illustrator. All right, so our next thing that we're really gonna look at here is we're gonna look at the line segment tool. So we're gonna play around with a few more things. Like before, if you right click on it, you're gonna see arc, spiral, rectangular, polar grid. We're just playing with the basics. So click and drag, and on here, if you look over in the properties, the same thing. It's gonna have a stroke. Now, one thing I've come to realize is you can't fill a line because there's no space in there. It's whatever your stroke is gonna be your color. Let's change that stroke. Let's make it 5, so it's a little thicker. Go back over here and we have our selection tool, and we can drag that around. We can shrink it. We can even rotate it. There's a lot of things we can do with it, but you made a line then. Real simple, real basic. All right, next, let's take a look at the rectangular tool. Right click, a lot of options. Even once you do those, you can make some big edits on there. We're gonna take and drag it out, make a shape. The same things apply with like the font. You can come over here, it's gonna tell you your exact measurements. If we want to, we can change this to 7, automatically changes. Now, let's change the fill, and let's make this, let's say yellow. I don't like that yellow. Let's go with it. There we go. It's a bit better yellow. And we got that font stroke of 5. Let's change that to 3. There we go. And so those are some of our basic tools when we get into here. You're going to have your selection tools. One thing I've come to find on here that's kind of cool too is there's this white selection tool, and it's a direct selection tool, or you can go a group selection tool. And when you click on it, it gives you a few more options. For example, here, you can kind of shrink your letters down. You can curve edges. Just gives you some of those opportunities. Hey, take some time, play around, use some of those basic things. When we come back in our next episode, we're going to look at a few more of these tools, and we're actually going to try and make something that you could use on your own. If you're a teacher in your classroom, if you just like playing with these programs, you could even take and make a thing for your door in your house. Opportunities endless. So thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe. Be glad to see you back.